All right, Matt, we got
Sam,
this we got this comment on one of our videos that you saw. I
I
would
saw
love
it.
to I'd love to talk about it. Because I think a lot of people go through this. I think this is very real. So, here's the comment, and then I would love your reaction as somebody who makes really good training videos. All right. As a person who has had to go through garbage training for minimum wage jobs just like this, I can assure you they'll be watching videos or playing games on their computer or TV while running your training videos in the background, ignoring them. When they hit a break point, they'll answer a few questions on your training app and go back to living their lives. We do not care at all about your businesses. Pay us if you want us to pretend to care.
Ooh, that's
Big comment.
real.
Big comment.
That's
That's
real talk.
Saint Spy 212 going hard at training videos. What do you think? What is your reaction to a comment like this?
Saint Spy 212. Well, yeah, so this was on, I believe the video was a restaurant leader talking about implementing, training content in their LMS. And I mean, this is about as real as it gets. And first of all, I mean, you gotta love Gen Z, right? Like, just
Oh yeah,
like the
just saying it,
authenticity and
saying it.
just like, dude, we do not give a shit about your training videos.
Yes, we care about
Yes,
one thing. We're here
we
for
care
one
about
reason.
one thing. And I mean, and I think that everybody says that. Like, I say that. I'm like, I really only care about getting paid. But you know what? That's also like just genuinely not true. I do care about more things than getting paid. I care about liking the people I work with. I care about enjoying the work that I do. I care about actually caring about what I'm doing. You, believing in what I'm
Yeah,
doing. And so I guess I just don't believe this person. I kind of just don't believe them. And I know this isn't even like what we're talking about here, but when I really start thinking about it, I don't actually believe them. Like, because I've been this person, I've said stuff like this, and I don't think I really meant it when I said stuff like this, deep down in my heart, and I don't think this person really does either.
what do you think what do you think drives somebody to see a video online and like write something like this, or drives them to think this and say this versus doing anything else?
I don't know. It's just like they've had an experience where maybe they just got left in a back room, and maybe the reason they don't give a, and I've said it already, so I guess we've opened the floodgates. I could say it again.
Just let it rip.
They don't give a shit because maybe nobody gave a shit about them, or at least that's how they felt. And I don't, I'm not a restaurant manager. I don't want to like act like I know the best way to motivate this employee, but I think that we would all, anybody listening to this would agree that it's about a little bit of care. It's about knowing this person, showing some interest, you know, caring about them as a person, connecting with them as a person. And that's not like a cure all, but I, I think that this is just a symptom of them not feeling cared for in any way. Um, yeah, ultimately, and that's why they probably left that job with a bad taste in their mouth, and they had to watch garbage training for minimum wage, um, and they just didn't care. You know what I mean? It's probably
Yeah.
because they just didn't feel cared for at the end of the day. And that's a topic for a whole nother time. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I think I also want to say, as somebody who makes training content,
Yeah.
professionally, we make e-learning courses, we make training videos for people in I hope that it's not garbage, and it's not all minimum wage jobs. I feel like a lot of our the brands we work with, pay pretty well. And I, uh, I would say to anybody out there who's listening who happens to be like a hospitality or retail trainer, because you might be in a position where you're in training, you're in learning and development. I would say to you, and I have to remind myself of this, you care more than anybody else about the content that you're putting out
Point.
there.
That's a really
Like
good
if
point.
like if there's a scale of 0 to 100 of how much somebody cares about this like training content, you are a 100 on that scale, right? And so first of all, I would say lower your expectations, because people will never know it or care about it as much as you do, right? So that's a little bit of like a gut check that we have to give ourselves as trainers here, as people who create training content. We have to remind ourselves that we've watched it, we've gone through it so many times, and we are so invested and we care so much. So it's extra painful if somebody is like a 0 on the scale, like this guy is. But I would say if somebody's like a 30 on the scale, if you're a 100 and they're a 30, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good, if they're a 30. Like, I don't mind that. I'll take that. If
You can
someone's
work with
30,
a 30. Yeah.
I can work with a 30 because they're like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna probably remember it. I'm gonna take it in. I could probably repeat some stuff back. I'll get it. I'm not gonna leave it. I'm not gonna go and on. I'm not gonna give it a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever it is, fresh tomatoes. I forget. but it's good. I watched it and it made sense and I liked it. I'll take that. So first of all, let's just remind ourselves that people won't care as much as we do. Um, but also I think we just have to remember that ultimately the goal, right? The goal is not to watch it. If people are if your only goal is for people to take your training, then you're doing something wrong. The goal, as we all know, is for them to be able to do the thing and deliver on the results that we're trying to create and create the consistency. And if they're not doing that, then that's a symptoms of maybe they don't care and maybe they didn't do the step, maybe they didn't watch the training. But if you have hospitality training that teaches people to smile and make eye contact and greet a customer in a certain way or upsell in a certain way, if they're doing it, great. You know what I mean? Whether they took the training or not, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but ultimately that's the goal, right?
Well, I think so, because if you think about if you break down their comment and what they said, they are one, I would assume this is fairly long training if they're able to they're saying they're watching TV. I don't know where they have a TV, but if they're able to watch TV, you're watching that's a lot of training that you're taking, sitting and
Yeah,
somewhere watching it. So one, seems like it might be a long amount of time. Two, might not be that interesting.
right.
Three, if they can just put down their phone and pass the quiz, they probably didn't need to be taking the training in the first place. Right. So they already knew it. If they don't need to watch it to be able to pass the quiz or whatever you're doing to validate their knowledge, then there's something to be said for that, that none of this is the point. So if they can get it, it's 30% and they can pass the training, fantastic. Get them out on the floor now and have them do the thing that the video was teaching them to do. That's the whole point here.
Right. Totally. And I mean, in our last episode that we had, in our last conversation, we talked about how it's introduced shadow, perform, validate, or tell, show, do, review, right? Tell, show, do, apply, as I've also heard. And like if they can apply, if you can validate, if they can review, if you can review it with them and they can do the thing, um, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thought, as somebody who makes this training,
Yeah.
um, there are some states that require really long amounts of training,
Yeah.
right? So California's got state requirements. You got to sit there and you've got to watch an hour of training sometimes because it's mandated. How do you approach that? How do you think through? How do you keep somebody engaged digitally when you've got to do it? Because I feel like that's if I'm on the other end of the spectrum of well, sometimes you have to and you're forced to do it. How do you break down that problem to make that interesting or keep that compelling, knowing that this is how employees may feel on the other
Yeah.
side?
Yeah. I mean, in our business, we've adopted this mentality of edutainment, where if people are going to have to watch content, then maybe they feel like this. There's some people who will always feel like that, like this, and it is what it is. But we still want to make it good. We don't want it to be garbage training, as this guy says. That hurts my feelings. Saint Spy 212 on the internet. We don't want it to be garbage training, of course not. So we strive to make it edutaining, meaning that maybe there's a pace to the content. Maybe it's a faster pace to the edit that feels more like a YouTube video that you might watch, like a how-to YouTube video. Maybe it means introducing animation that kind of brings it alive, that illustrates a point really, really well, that teaches really well. And the goal is never just to entertain or to be interesting. The goal is to teach, right? That's why it's edutainment and not just entertainment. And so, I mean, the example that we come back to a lot is in, our hospitality training. We introduced a cast of characters that kind of interacted with the host, and the goal was to keep it interesting, to make it memorable, so that we have Miss Manners who talks about how to dress well and be clean, or how to talk to people in the restaurant politely, and we have to remember our manners. And like, is anybody like just rolling on the floor laughing at Miss Manners? And are they like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever watched? No. Are they going to remember?
One person, maybe one.
Maybe one. But if maybe it'll get like a nose laugh. Maybe it'll get maybe it'll make somebody remember it. Maybe it'll make this kid who is not really paying that close of attention to look up and be like, wait, what was this again? What's going on here? There's a Victorian lady by a fireplace talking about manners. Okay, maybe I'll pay attention just enough so that they can remember it, so that they can perform it, so that it can be validated, so that they'll actually stick. Because we all know that when we make something more engaging, when we make something edutainment, it sticks with people. People remember it, right? If they're engaged while they're learning, if they're somehow entertained, people are much more likely to remember it. And that means they're more likely to put it into practice. So that's really, in my mind, from our end, that's what we've done to try to combat this, is to basically just not make garbage training. But there's people that are always going to be like this. But I also just subscribe to the idea of teaching to the top, right? And sometimes I even hate to say something like that, because you don't want to put down people who don't care, because ideally we would inspire them too. Ideally, people as leaders, we would find a way to reach them, to connect with them, to find what works with them, find what motivates them, because something motivates this kid. Like I said, I don't believe him that he just doesn't care. Something motivates him. But there's some people who are just going to like eat up all of the training. There's some people who are going to be eager to learn. There's some people who are going to watch it all, or take it all and understand it all. And those are the people that you want to like latch onto, right? And that you're teaching to those people. Make the kind of training that teaches the people who are hungry, and it'll benefit those people will rise. Those people will soar, right? And everybody else will still benefit from that, even if they're not necessarily as eager as those top performers.
I think you're spot on. And I honestly think like that's really the point at the end of the day. Like, do your best to use training the right way, use digital training the right way, make it the best that you can, and teach to the top. And there may be folks like this that aren't engaged at the end of the day, but that's not who you're designing for. Design something well for the people at the top, and then kind of let the chips fall where they may from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it's a great spot to wrap it up, Matt.
Love it.
Until next time.
Until next time.